Have you ever wondered how Pokemon exploded in the 1990s to ultimately become the largest media franchise of all time? I think it's important to take a look at the history of Game Freak to really wrap our heads around how Pokemon was first thought of. Let's take a trip down memory lane when it all began when Satoshi Tajiri, the series creator, started a fan magazine in the early 80s named Game Freak, which basically was a series of guides and Easter eggs. This caught the attention of Ken Sugimori, the man who would eventually be known for his iconic creature designs, who would soon after become its illustrator. Fast forward some years later, and the two would go on to form an actual game company using the name Game Freak alongside Junichi Masuda. And now we're starting to see a familiar picture with familiar names in the Pokemon world. Pokemon was first conceptualized by Tajiri in 1990. By all accounts, the idea came from the recollection of his childhood growing up in rural Japan, collecting insects and having the time of his life. After seeing the capabilities of the Game Boy, specifically with the link cable, Tajiri envisioned bugs being able to move back and forth across the cable and wanted to recreate his experiences as a child for the next generation. Considering the rapid urbanization of many parts of Japan meant less chances for Japanese children to collect and trade bugs with each other as Tajiri had done in his childhood days. So the idea was pitched to Nintendo as a publisher. They didn't fully understand the concept and Tajiri had troubles explaining it, but they went along with it because of the impressive work he had done up until then. During this time, the legendary developer Shigeru Miyamoto would become both a mentor and a rival for Tajiri. For those who are not familiar, Miyamoto is actually the creator of the hugely popular Mario and Zelda games. For the next 6 years, Game Freak would work on Pokemon alongside a handful of other games like Yoshi and Pulseman, having a handful of employees quit due to the company's financial concerns as they nearly went broke during this time. Isn't that the story though? You have these companies on the brink of despair and they ultimately persevere and do something special. After development was complete, not much was expected from Pokemon at the time, as the Game Boy was actually closer to the end of its life cycle. Despite that, Nintendo published it as planned. Seemingly overnight, Pokemon exploded in popularity and the rest is history. Pokemon found its way out into the world and would soon become Nintendo's top franchise and the highest grossing media franchise on the planet. So now that we set the stage, it's appropriate to ask, what exactly caused Pokemania? Well, it might not be easy for everyone involved to have seen the magic then, but as they say, hindsight is 20/20. I'm 32 years old right now, so I grew up kind of in the heart sweet spot of Pokemania. When I was about 7 years old, Pokemon launched and it took over. And I thought it'd be really fun to put together this video and actually look back at this history. So to start, there was really nothing like it on the market. Like many JRPGs released during this golden era of gaming, Pokemon was turn-based, but it was clearly very different from your Final Fantasies and your Dragon Quests at the time. Except for one of them. In 1992, Dragon Quest V had the potential of monsters you defeated in battle of joining your party if you were strong enough. Pokemon kind of did that, but on steroids. Not only was your party exclusively monsters, but you got to make the choice, ultimately collecting, trading, and battling with the Pokemon that you wanted. Japanese parents also noticed a lack of graphic violence compared to other games on the market, which was definitely a plus, and then you combine that with the fact that so many people already had that cost-effective Game Boy at the time. This is a product that a ton of homes had, as it really was the first mobile gaming device of its time, and again, we're talking about the end of the Game Boy's life cycle here, so the cost of it was relatively low in comparison to a new product. Now, if we're looking at American parents when Pokemon first came out, yeah, some were a little off their rockers, but hey, that probably adds to it. Any publicity is good publicity, right? And it's worth noting that while Pokemon is in no way a platformer, that collectathon aspect was very popular in gaming at the time, as seen with games like Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie. So when you add in Satoshi Tajiri's bug collecting reminiscing, it's almost as if the public consciousness was at play here. Then there's the usage of the link cable. Tajiri was so spot on and right on the money with his intuitions of this system being so much more than a means for playing Tetris with friends. This idea that you can transport data across this link cable and trade actual creatures was revolutionary. The link cable allowed Pokemon to travel back and forth between systems, trading with friends for creatures you didn't have, evolve, battle, all the features we enjoy and expect as commonplace. These were pretty revolutionary at the time. So listen, I get it. We can understand the right time, the right place, and everything from a technical aspect, but let's not forget about the design aspect of the series that plays a crucial role in people's love and enjoyment, even today. If the designs for Pokemon were bad, it wouldn't be where it is. Ken Sugimori and all the other talented artists really brought their A-game when creating the original 151. Sugimori's style is definitely inspired by Akira Toriyama, and it really shows in his work. For those who don't know, Toriyama is a very well-known Japanese manga artist, most known for creating Dragon Ball. The triangular eyes, more simplistic shapes, and the watercoloring all scream Dragon Ball. And there we have another potential check for why Pokemon became so popular. But even when taking the art style away, the Pokemon were all very charming in their own ways. Plenty may have been simple creatures like turtles, frogs, and dragons, but having them drawn interestingly, cool, or just plain cute is all that matters. Not only did many of them appeal to young boys, but girls were just impressed as well with the likes of Pikachu and Clefairy. It seemed as though in the original 151, they had Pokemon that can cover all different types and preferences and interest levels. Creature designs are just one piece of the puzzle here, and they're not the only thing to praise, as Junichi Masuda brought so much to the table, and his score needs some serious praise. Game music of this era may definitely have some nostalgia, but Pokemon hits differently. This isn't nostalgia or bias in favor of the series talking. Pokemon's music really is just that good, and it holds up today. The channel David Bennett Piano goes super into detail, and their video on it is great, so I can't recommend enough for you guys to watch. I may not be doing the full video justice here, but the short of it is that the developers for the Game Boy were very limited in how they can create music for the system. So Junichi Masuda rose to the challenges of trying to figure out how to make beautiful music despite these limitations. A major source of inspiration was Johann Sebastian Bach's use of counterpoint, a way of creating melody and harmony with limited instruments. This classical music influence has led to countless memorable tracks over the years that still hold up today. So you've got this perfect idea that captures the hearts of tons of kids, utilizes the technology at the time through the link cable, has incredible art designs and monsters that people love that really hadn't been done at the time, and then you throw on the fact that the music was absolutely incredible, and you've got yourself something really special here. But the games are not the only thing to take into account. Now we're gonna move on to the series beyond the games, the card game and the anime, as these two combined with the games themselves really sealed the deal for Pokemon being a mainstay in homes around the world. Starting with the trading card game, it became a huge hit internationally, especially in America, and that may be in part due to Wizards of the Coast's involvement with it. Wizards was already a household name at this point because of Magic the Gathering, so combining this majorly popular franchise with this majorly popular card game publisher, the success was all but guaranteed. Though Wizards' time with Pokemon was short, lasting only from '99 to 2003, Wizards was on top of the world for a bit, publishing the top 2 best-selling card games in America. And I'll be real, a lot of me doing the research on this video is because I'm creating my own card game right now called Elestrals, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of look back at what resulted in Pokemon's massive boom. By the way, you guys should follow us on social media. Go check out Elestrals.com. All in all, they didn't react the best in the world when they lost the publishing right, with the vice president threatening to go scorched earth mode on Nintendo, but everything ended up well for both parties in the end, for the most part. So for the Pokemon TCG, the game was easy enough to pick up, featured beautiful artwork and hollow patterns, and was just another branch on this very fruitful tree. Then there's the Pokemon anime, the television show that every kid around the world could not wait to see, no matter what time it was on. It became a routine to watch shows on Saturday and Sunday mornings to see Ash's adventures with Pikachu and friends. They were absolutely a must-see. Now, there were some hiccups here and there, with a handful of episodes being banned and some weird edits to make it less Japanese for other audiences, but despite these oddities, it persevered and only further helped it getting Pokemon's brand into as many households as possible. The anime did a lot of good over the years, but probably the most important aspect of it was solidifying Pikachu as Pokemon's mascot, giving it an icon to its worldwide recognition. And a fun little fact here, Clefairy was almost the Pikachu of Pokemon, which is pretty wild to think about. So we've talked about the game, we've talked about the anime, we've talked about the cards. Really all there is left to talk about is a few miscellaneous factors and how everything all ties together. It's important to note that the way Pokemon was marketed was really helpful in terms of gathering a lot of interest from the Western audience. RPGs weren't the most popular at the time, but the way Pokemon was shown off in commercials was just plain fun. Nowadays, it seems agencies don't really go for zany anymore, just being able to rely on the brand name recognition. But back in the 90s, it was a different game. The marketing was just so weird, and that's all honestly what worked then. I remember this commercial of the Pokemon all hopping onto the bus, and you've got this bus driver like all kind of disarrayed because the Pokemon are hopping on, and that was just how marketing worked at the time, and it made Pokemon fun and interesting and exciting, and it was legitimately something you couldn't get away from growing up in the 90s. Beyond that, we have all of the different rumors and reactionaries. The Mew hidden under the truck may have spiked curiosity and late adopters in the franchise, and you've got word of mouth from people protesting the games. Pokemon is an evil game that corrupted children. The music made children ill. The archaic clickbait. But all that did was just make rational people even more interested in the series. The schoolyard rumors took their own life and their own form, as you had to defeat the Elite Four 100 times for Professor Oak to give you a Pokeball for Mew 3. I mean, we've all heard it, and while it's fun to look back on and laugh on now, this was a real thing that took place that people talked about. This was before the boom of the internet, when you could just look up any solution you needed. This was a whole new situation, and it had people talking, collecting, trading, and sharing their love for Pokemon. What an incredible time to be alive. So coming back to the question, what ultimately caused Pokemania? Well, it was really all of the above. The absolute perfect storm of a unique, new concept with tons of personality being put on a low-cost, largely owned device that spread like wildfire across the world, whether it was from positive reception or wacky people. It was absolutely wild what happened, and it was literally every little perfect piece of the puzzle coming together to make something truly great. Now, over the years, Pokemon is invented, they've innovated, they add new creatures, and we're over 1,000 Pokemon at this point in time. They've expanded to mobile games, sleep devices and trackers, and all sorts of stuff, and really, the possibilities are endless. When you are the largest media franchise in the world, you kind of have a lot of money that you could do whatever you want, and I'm very excited to see what the next 25 years have in store for the Pokemon franchise. Regardless, with the exception of maybe the launch of Pokemon Go, I don't know if we'll ever quite see Pokemania like we did back in the 90s, but it was sure a treat to be a part of it. I want to take a moment and say thank you so much for watching this video on Pokemania and why Pokemon exploded the way it did. As I said, I have a ton of interest in this as someone creating my own game and taking a ton of inspiration from what I grew up loving, the nostalgia that I had, and being able to share that all with you. So thank you so much for that. Be sure to like the video if you guys enjoyed, and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new for more Pokemon videos like this. And if you want to check out my project Elestrals, you can go to elestrals.com. Our cards are launching for our Kickstarter this summer. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. If you enjoyed this video, definitely check out this one right here, but this one's pretty sweet too. Subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.